But if you disclose that AI made that error, you have no coverage. I'm a business lawyer by training, building multiple companies. A few of them I've sold. One or two I've tragically broken in front of everybody. It seems like every one I've broken, I've written a book about.
But before I dive in and speak to our very special guest today, I'm Vinnie Fisher, the CEO and founder of SiteTrust, all the way from the States. Is this some tech solution that brings us all together? How does that look for you?
90% of carriers around the world, if you make a mistake with your CRM, pick your CRM. Let's just say you're using, Go High Level or Salesforce. We're all acting like these robots are taking over. And that's not really how the market's going to work. We need human oversight on top of this technology. We are going to have a correction. There's way too much money that's been deployed in.
70% of the jobs that exist now didn't exist then, right? And that's just an evolution of how things go with technology.
Yeah, I think we're going to have... Businesses don't love chaos. They love consistency. A good business is a boring business. We call it prove it, govern it, and cover it.
Hello, and welcome to today's podcast, Behind the Numbers, the podcast that seeks the personalities in the technology industry. But before I dive in and speak to our very special guest today, I'd like to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Kinetic Core AI. They're a firm that help tech companies grow their revenues within 12 months. So if you're interested in a growth consultancy, drop the word grow in the DMs and we'll take it from there. So, really pleased to have on the show today, Vinnie Fisher, the CEO and founder of SiteTrust, all the way from the States. Vinnie, wonderful to have you, and glad you're back safe from your long-haul travels.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm real excited about diving in deep today, and really love what you're doing with your community. So thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure, Vinnie. So let's dive in and talk about you, the interesting stuff. So give us a sense of your background, your history. Give us a bit of a potted history about the stuff that sort of worked for you, but then equally a couple of failures in the way that's helping shape you moving forward.
Oh, big question. So let's go ahead and answer the first one. I'm a business lawyer by training. So it's really marked my entrepreneurial career. I've had the privilege of building multiple companies. A few of them I've sold. One or two I've tragically broken in front of everybody. It seems like every one I've broken, I've written a book about. Anyone that's been successful is like, everyone wants to hear why you lost the game, not why you won the game, right? So those tend to do what they do. I'm a husband of 30 plus years. We have 4 children. I build businesses. I see problems in the marketplace and try to develop my version of the solution. And so that's just been what's been my career. And, I've got plenty of wins and losses on the schedule.
No, I'm sure. So being a lawyer by trade then, are all the businesses that you tend to build, are they focused around the legal profession, or are you taking the good stuff out of what you've learned from the legal perspective and applying it to different industries?
I found out that I was really good at operating a business or making good decisions without needing all the information. I'm just one of those people that I say 70%, but somewhere north of 60% of the information I can deploy quickly and iterate. It's just been like my thing. My problems, honestly, the thing that's closest to my law career is the thing I'm doing now. Everything else has been something like I owned a web hosting company. We built some of the first tech around how to deploy websites back in the late thousands. And then, we built a consumer brand. We had a woman's face cream that popped, did really well. One of our best exits. And then, my last 10 years, I built a fractional accounting company, right? So if you look at the storyline, it's usually a problem I had. So I had this great health company, but I didn't know my numbers. And I like to grow things, but I don't really watch the bottom line as well as people might think. I learned that, and that's what launched this company called Fully Accountable. So I'm really more problem solution of what's in front of me. And so that's what I'm doing at SiteTrust. I saw this lack of disclosure, and I saw this issue, a gap in the marketplace, that it's so a gap that insurance companies aren't even providing adequate insurance coverage to cover the real liability that we as companies have. And so I wanted to do something about that. So pushed the chips forward, and I'm building that.
Okay. Well, let's follow that thread then. So tell us a little bit about SiteTrust. What's the main outcome you're trying to achieve in the market? I know you touched on that slightly there. And what are you bringing to the market, and how are you going to deliver that?
Our tagline is from disclosure to coverage, right? And so what do we mean by that is we call it prove it, govern it, and cover it. prove that how you're using AI, like have a disclosure. And that primary disclosure is what sets up an adequate business relationship with your customer. It's actually the whole basis of mitigating the risk of your systems. Govern it. One of the things I don't love what's going on in the marketplace, to be honest with you, is we're all acting like these robots are taking over. When that's not really how the market's going to work. We need human oversight on top of this technology. So how do you govern with humans the stuff we're building? No different than any tech cycle we've gone through. And then cover it. The whole idea there is like, is there a risk? Is there a gap of risk that can be covered by insurance because you're providing oversight of your disclosures? And that's what we do here at our organization.
That sounds interesting. How are you physically delivering that? Is this some tech solution that brings us all together, or is this policy? How does that look for you?
Yeah, so it's pretty thin on parts of it in the sense that like we try to always do everything we've ever built, try to be as thin in tech as we can because of whatever I think the market wants, what it needs. So if you think from a standpoint of risk as a business, the first thing we always want to do is mitigate our exposure, right? Reduce the amount of risk we take. So in the law and regulation, it's the same as was tech last week as it is this week because AI is just the new flavor of that, but it's overwhelmed people. And so people are hiding behind the use of it. So our first move is to help you disclose an AI policy to your systems, actually have a certification process that we help provide, scan the system, documentation, put a trust badge on your site, give you a public registry, like completely deal with disclosure to prove it, how we're using it. Then the governance piece is ongoing administration, either internally or by some external advisor or tool that monitors the stuff you're doing. That is the core of what we do. We just recently finally introduced SiteTrust insurance, which is a way to provide an AI gap coverage. And the reason we did that is the first two pieces of it are needed. It was incomplete without finishing the loop by providing a way to cover if you've done all those first things right. So we have a very thin technology. We have a back end. We hook into a broker network. We evaluate our own risk of what we insure. But what's neat is if someone's going through the process of certifying that how they disclose, they've substantially reduced their risk and they become insurable. That's solving in the marketplace because 90% of carriers around the world, if you make a mistake with your CRM, pick your CRM. Let's just say you're using, I don't know, Go High Level or Salesforce. And if it makes an error now, it's covered as part of your tech. But if you disclose that AI made that error, you have no coverage.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And in terms of this offer then, what segment of the market's sort of taking this up quite readily?
Small and medium-sized businesses, insurance is always about, can you cover your own risk, right? And like, are you doing such in such a way that you can self-underwrite? Well, a small company probably doesn't have much to lose. It's like getting blood or water from a stone. You're not going to get much there. So they always take all of the risk and live outside of insurance. And even though they really need it, they don't want to spend the budget on it.
Sure.
What I call an SMB, a company that actually has an operating business, some staff, and working towards medium enterprise, they have things to lose, but they can't handle the hit of self-insuring. That's our market.
Sweet. So it's you're sort of sector agnostic, but it's more around the sort of the size of the company.
That's right. I don't love being, I want to be real for all of our guests. I don't enjoy being sector agnostic. I think we will want to start categorizing some of that because I think that's a little too broad. But interestingly, I don't love that fact. That's actually what allowed Fully Accountable to really grow once we became for e-commerce and high transaction companies. So that's a problem I'm going to need to solve for. I think we need to be defined in some industries.
Interesting. What you described in your opening gambit around that company that you had during the .com era, you're now heavily involved in the AI era, both seismic changes in technology. Give us a bit of a sense of what you think is similar between those two eras in terms of what's going on in the market, investor sentiment, any of those type of things. But then also give us a sense of what you think is different, what makes AI different now to then, if at all.
I'll tell you this, like you look at every little phase of market disruption. And one thing seems to always be true. Money pushes a lot of money into capital has been really deployed, right? I think that's true of every phase of disruption. There's something, though, that's another level here. And the reason why I say that is the amount of money being capitalized into the automated elements of AI and the tech explosion around it. I think later, maybe our kids, maybe not you and I, maybe you and I, but definitely our kids are going to look at this as a revolution, no different than the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
It's hard, right? Because it's really hard as like Arthur Brooks and all these writers, it's hard to talk about history when you're in it. It's way easier for you and I to have an intellectual conversation about the world wars or the Industrial Revolution because we have perspective. We have the Monday morning quarterback perspective. I know that's an American term, but we use our hands for football, not our feet. I think we're in the middle of this supposed revolution. And I think things like SpaceX, having data centers in suborbit, I think having power to be able to compute computation at such a speed. We haven't invented anything new. That's what's interesting. We've just made what we have faster. It's interesting. We are going to have a correction. There's way too much money that's been deployed in. So I think when you look at certain segments in society, in my opinion, maybe some economists share mine, I think a lot of the capital that's being deployed is getting ready for the next version of society. It's not a current ROI. I think we're investing in the next generation, not in our current generation.
Interesting. So do I get a sense, are you an AI optimist or pessimist? How do you see it all playing out?
We're hanging out. I'm a realist more, and I tend to be an optimist who has to put realist on it. I don't have a pessimist mindset. Like I'm just a peacemaker and always look at the encouraging thing and stuff. So if anything, I lean towards optimism. I got to work at protecting against optimism, just like people have to work at protecting against pessimism. So I tend to try to land at realism. Like what's the state of things as my governance tool for my optimism. And so I'm pro AI because I've been pro every technology. Because the irony is there's a fair question to ask. Here's an intellectual philosophy question. We built computers. Is the full circle moment that computers should have always been running computers? And the only reason we were running computers was because we lacked the ability to have them operate within an ecosystem that we can oversee.
Mm-hmm.
And are we just getting there? I can spend a few minutes and think of all the bad ideas that come out of that. But I also can see that there's a full circle moment that maybe in society, maybe we're meant to spend more time with each other and less hitting the buttons on a computer.
I think, so yeah, you just absolutely hit something that resonates with me, and something that I sort of think about a lot is that I believe this AI will allow us to do the things or have more personal relationships. You know, we've been, like you say, we've been embroiled with operating computers ourselves, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, pressing these buttons, etc. And now there's the opportunity to automate that piece to give us that ability to develop better relationships. I'm a big believer in that. And, you know, if you look at the job market, people are worried about jobs, etc. And things will change. But if you look at the job market in the 1940s, 70% of the jobs that exist now didn't exist then, right? And that's just an evolution of how things go with technology. You touched on the Industrial Revolution, how that changed things. So definitely on the optimistic side myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to have job compression. We expand and improve or evolve, whatever words people like, the market. You know, I agree with that stat about, do we need a parking attendant to park cars in a garage? The question that's going to come is, will we even use garages to park cars? This is just the natural progression of like how things are going to move. And so what's compressing is middle management.
Yeah.
Right? But you needed that oversight because of the inefficiency of the way we built our own marketplace. So that stuff's going to happen. I'm not one of these people, though, that buys into the removal of humans. I find that to be an exhausting conversation because there's been no evidence ever in the history of man. Like there's only one thing a man with power wants is more power. So it runs against the axiom of man, the idea that we're going to remove ourselves.
Absolutely. Some really interesting points there, mate. Really good stuff. Right, so tell us a bit about what's going the next 12 to 18 months for SiteTrust. What have you got planned? What are the headwinds? How do you think the market's going to help get you where you're going to go or hinder you? What's it looking like for you guys?
I'm technically still a startup, right? And in startup, by the way, it's a phase of business. There's no such thing as startups. I want to be everyone listening. Don't call yourself a startup. It's just a mode you're in. If you don't solve a problem and you can't say what you do, don't say you're a startup. I want to help you. Please hear me out. I used to talk like that. There's no such thing as a business being a startup. It's just a mode you're in. Well, my job now, Matt, is to have our offer converting at a level that can get into a growth phase and be able to self-liquidate its own capitalization. That's the phase we're in. 18 months from now, I think we hit in a market where there's a gap for insurance and covering the business. The trends seem to accurately reflect where we're heading. I'm excited about that. It's going to take me about 18 months to be considered an overnight success.
That's interesting. And are you not susceptible to sort of geopolitical issues that are going on? Are you sort of like you can operate without that, or something like the war in Iran, would that impact you significantly? How does that play with your particular business and where it's going?
I think we have a bigger geopolitical issue that's hitting us, if I could answer it this way. I think the world, China, the US, those are probably the two biggest players. I would say Russia, but they're broke. They're the sanctions, so they're not in the game. This is no different than when the iPhone and the internet and all that. Who's grabbing control of the tech, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's an arms race to who's building the best controls. I don't know that the battling over oil coming out of a strait is our thing. It's this lack of policy so that we can grab market share is probably the biggest headwind we're facing, right? Because when business settles down, we want consistency. We want insurability. We want structure. But right now, it's like our own federal government in the United States is like, we're not going to put any policy on this to protect business and consumers because we want as much ground to cover. That's currently our biggest headwind. Now, that'll change. A couple elections, a couple of this, a couple of that. But that's where we're deploying a lot of capital, is to be relevant for a time in front of us. This is the first time I've ever built a business that's really genuinely in a blue ocean. I've always been in some version of a bluish, purpley ocean, sadly, in some respects, ahead of the market. And a lot of that's because of the administrations, including our own, who are like, we're not going to govern this thing until we grabbed enough ground.
Interesting. No, very good.
That's the biggest geopolitical thing I'm fighting. I don't love it. It's not good for business. Businesses don't love chaos. They love consistency. They love a good business is a boring business. And there's no thing where you wake up every day and the world's uncertain. That's just not how we will operate as a people. So I have to continue to self-liquidate and deploy capital in that kind of mindset.
Really great insight there. Appreciate that, Vinnie. Thank you. Question we ask all our guests: what one piece of advice would you give the 18-year-old Vinnie, which would have stood him in good stead for his journey through, law and also entrepreneurship? So what did you wish you knew when you were 18, which you know now?
In our imaginations, we treat ourselves far worse than the realities of our lives. And I think there's a pressure because of the automation of technology that young people have to have it figured out differently than when you and I were younger. I would go on the adventure of enjoying parts of life, getting better at things. In order to get better at things, you should start to find out what talents are some of the things you uniquely have. I speak to mid-tier adults and later adults who don't even know their talent. They aren't self-aware. I would have loved to have had me speaking into my life when I was younger. Be more self-aware. What are you capable of? And what are the things you shouldn't be capable of? And because of that, you can start to line up your talents with things you actually enjoy doing. I think passion is a very interesting term used in our society today. I think we're all uniquely designed in ways to help others. What's the best way you're going to help others? Find that out. And if you need to do 60 things in your 20s to find that out, do it. Enjoy that part of it. For the people who have it all locked in and they're going to be an accountant from the hour they woke up, so be it. Don't let them cause you the downside pressure. But the adventure of discovering who you are is a joy in unto itself.
Wonderful. I love that. It's great stuff. Thank you, Vinnie. Wonderful. If people want to find out more about yourself and SiteTrust, where do they need to go?
Well, SiteTrust.com is easy. You can just go there. That's our brand. And Vinnie Fisher, everything, right? All my hashtags, everything. Like, if you can't find me, then you didn't look, right? So you can find me everywhere. And then, Matt, we just love to give out stuff. So we think about trust, disclosure, responsibility inside of an AI world. So at sitetrust.com/gift, and you can type it with an S if you want. Either way will get you. We have just some materials that we want everyone to have about how to frame your mindset around what responsible AI looks like. How do you actually start ushering in a responsibility, a trust that the marketplace is so desperately needing? And please take advantage of all those things. My team keeps diving and putting more things in there weekly. It's actually quite ridiculous, the things that are in there. And so please take full advantage of that.
I'm sure the listeners will. That's very generous, Vinny, to get people started on that journey. So you've been a wonderful guest. I mean, full of great insight. I could talk to you for hours. You've got such a in-depth knowledge and also quite a philosophical view on, the world, technology, and how it all plays out. So it's been very enlightening for me, and I'm sure a number of the listeners will feel the same. So thank you again for joining, and many pleasure.
Man, I want to thank you for having me. I think we need more of these discussions around this. So thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So guys, if you enjoyed that conversation and you'd like to hear more, please subscribe. And until next time, see you then.